Perfect. Thank you. So let's go. Sorry.
Alright, hi everyone, my name is Trâm and I'm Vietnamese, but I'm currently studying in the UK and I just finished my high school, I just graduated from high school. So today I'll be talking about transformation of traditional to modern leadership in the VUCA environment. So the content that we're going to go through, we're going to have introduction, problem statement, literature review, research method, research objectives, research questions, discussions and suggestions, conclusion limitation, and further research. Now again, because I don't have enough time, I'll just go through it briefly, and I will emphasize the use of discussion. So introduction, exploration of VUCA world in today's context. VUCA is an acronym. It stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Within, we have deeper insights into the evolution of leadership theories, and will be familiarized with various leadership styles. Right, one of the problem statements is, because the world is dynamic, it's unpredictable, and the business environment is constantly changing. And that reflects VUCA, the acronym that I just talked about. Then we have a single leadership approach, which is actually one of the problems, because that's the problem with one size fits all. It's because when leaders, they use the same strategy for all businesses in order to cope with the VUCA phenomenon. But again, one size fits all, it's not always the best option. So existing leadership theories will be evaluated and then adapted. So for literature review, again, VUCA stands for VUCA, as I just mentioned before, representing challenges that need distinct responses. According to Bennett and Lemon, rapid changes brings both opportunities and threats. Literature review. In order to adapt to change, we need to develop employees. Certainly, we need to focus on leadership style in order to, again, restructure our company, in order to adapt to the certain uncertain changes. Specialist knowledge, not enough in the VUCA world, according to VQ. That's one of the reasons why, because specialist knowledge, if you only use your departmental knowledge in order to cope with these VUCA, while not having that collaborative teamwork and sharing these ideas with other departments, it will lead to different conflicts that will kind of slow down the process of businesses in terms of coping with VUCA context. Leadership theories, some of them are outdated and some of them need significant updates, or basically reassessment. Another literature review. So traditional leadership focuses mostly on the great man theory, which is about fixed traits and hierarchical and autocratic styles, top-to-down management. Leadership theories adapt to changing time, complex, and steady. So one of the leadership evolution that I got from one of the thesis that I recently researched. So we can see that with the personality era, with the great man period, it's related to the theory with the great man theory, because the great man theory believes that only leaders with the certain leadership traits are what they actually inherit. So they basically have that when they were born. It's not about them, it's not about these trait theories that can be educated or trained from other systems. It's about how natural these theories are, and people were born with it. Some people were born with it. But then, as you can see, when it comes to the environmental period, which is also behavioral period, which is also related to the behavioral leadership style theories. So behavioral leadership theories believes the opposite from the great man theory, is that these leadership traits can actually be educated and acquired through education and training system. So I come up with this question: do leaders possess power, or is it power that designates individuals as leaders? Now that question seems to be hard to answer, because a thesis recently that I found, they said that leaders only have power if they involve in more tasks, and if they finish more tasks, they'll be able to acquire that power within their company. But I believe the different thing, because I feel like power is not the only word to describe leaders. Because we have influence, we have behavioral, we have environmental, and loads of other situational traits that could describe the leader. So I don't think, personally, I don't think that power is associated with leaders. Well, but it depends on how you define power. You can define power in a way that you have the influence on others, but you can define power as you have the authority in the business in order to make decisions. So again, this question remains vague and probably hard to understand. Right, there are some leadership theories. I'm not going to go through all them because we don't have enough time, but I will conclude with the leadership theories that need to be evolved continuously to adapt to a changing environment. I believe that leadership theories are not outdated. They just need some upgrade. They just need to update because each leadership matches and aligns well with each of the time period. And within the VUCA, within the constantly changing world, we always need to reassess, review our leadership theories in order to come up with the best strategy, leadership strategy for our company. So, 5 main leadership styles that I'll focus on: autocratic leadership, transformational leadership, democratic leadership, transactional leadership, and laissez-faire leadership. The research method, again, is still literature review-based method. And I'll be reviewing leadership evolution to assess the current leadership styles. One of the data collection I mostly got from, which is from the scholars' articles, books, and case studies. And we'll be analyzing, evaluating, and recommending this thing. Research objectives. I'll be comparing leadership models and highlight their characteristic, emphasize the need for the transformation of traditional to modern leadership for the VUCA phenomenon again. So leadership questions, I have 4 main questions. So what are the comparisons constructed between traditional and modern leadership in the VUCA context? What core competencies that leaders need in order to cope with the VUCA phenomenon, and how VUCA will impact SME and large enterprises? Of course, the way that the VUCA impacts SMEs and large enterprises varies, so we'll be talking about that. And another question is about what's the difference between SMEs and large enterprises' approaches and strategies for the VUCA context. So this is a table that I came up with myself. It's a comparative analysis of leadership styles, where I'll be using 5 main leadership styles that I just mentioned before, and I align it with these components of the VUCA characteristics. First of all, your autocratic leadership is when leaders retain the main control because they have the authority to make the decisions. They wouldn't let anyone, or even their employees, to involve in the decision-making process, which means that it will be able for their firms to cope with the volatility, because volatility requires the firms to cope with it quickly. So the speed of how the firms make decisions really important in terms of volatility. So that's the reason why autocratic leadership matches well with V component. However, with uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, these 3 components require intensively the knowledge between departments, especially collaborative teamwork. So they require different leadership approach that will be able to bring together all departments and employees from different places in order to raise ideas, become innovative, come up with better strategies. And that's the reason why with democratic leadership approach can then satisfy uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Transformational leadership is a bit different because transformational leadership still involves, still gather employees to make decisions. They still listen to employees in terms of decision making, and that's the reason why they can cope with complexity and ambiguity. But the good thing about transformational leadership is that they have effective and clear communication. And that's the reason why it helps them to cope with volatility, which in terms of the speed of making decisions, if you have clear communication and effective communication, there'll be less chances of facing misunderstandings, conflicts, or even silo mentality. Transactional leadership, it's a bit different from transformational leadership. Again, it still has some characteristics that are similar to transformational, so it can cope with volatility and uncertainty. But again, the reason why transactional leadership cannot cope with complexity and ambiguity because they focus more on short-term or tactical decisions. By that, I mean short-term and tactical decisions are only decisions that can be made in a short period of time and only for that certain periods. If they don't balance their focus on both short-term and long-term aims, they won't be able to cope with the complexity and ambiguity. And lastly, laissez-faire leadership. This one is interesting. Some of the theses mention that laissez-faire is actually not a type of leadership. Because if the leaders do not, for example, play a passive role in that company, are they known as leaders? I don't think so. But the good thing with laissez-faire leadership is that their employees, first of all, can make all the decisions because they are not involved in the decision-making process. However, they still provide significant resources for their employees in order to make decisions. So I believe that laissez-faire can cope with uncertainty and ambiguity again. But with laissez-faire leadership, the only thing that's a bit concerned is that, if the leaders let all their employees do every single thing, probably employees from different departments, will there be a silo mentality in terms of these departments avoiding each other and they don't want to share the information between each other? And again, without the leaders, without that guidance towards the end goal, they may be off track. And that's one of a really popular thing that happens with businesses. All right, in order to answer research question 1, which is, I believe, the comparisons between traditional and modern leadership styles, is that, first of all, leadership's expanded beyond power. So I think leadership is not just encapsulated in power, but they have more than that. They have influence, they have behavioral. And next is because leaders can become more diverse. In terms of traditional and modern, I don't think there's any leadership theories that is outdated, but I think leaders and business can actually use a mixture of leadership styles. For example, the business may be able to use 30% of the key characteristic from transformational leadership style, but then they can use the other 70% from another type of leadership style. For example, laissez-faire. Any kind of leadership style that matches their current business situation will become appropriate. And again, there's no right or wrong in leadership style. There's no rational or irrational leadership styles. It's just appropriate, relevant, or not. And no leadership, again, is completely outdated. Research question 2. The core competencies that the leaders need to have in VUCA, in order to cope with the VUCA phenomenon. First of all, professionalism. I'm not talking about in terms of their professions, their education and stuff. Professionalism in this means that they need to have that good reputation. They need to show the best side of them in front of their employees, because leaders are the role models of their employees. Next one is risk-taking, obviously. Within VUCA context, where it's constantly changing, some decisions will be made based on gut feeling, as in subjective decision-making. Because sometimes you just don't have enough time in order to make a rational decision to cope with that changing and dynamic world. And that's the reason why risk-taking is also an important trait of a leader. Trust the employee, delegate those tasks to the specialist, or to the business specialist or employees when needed. Clear reward and discipline system. This is important. It's about either punishing or motivating employees. And I think that with a business, even if there's a VUCA phenomenon or not, without having that specific reward or discipline system, they wouldn't be able to, again, guide their employees and, again, try to, reward employees and motivate them through these fringe benefits, for example. Leaders also need to be a listener and an educator. Assuming that leaders actually have more knowledge than just normal employees, right? It's always better for them to listen to their employees, because it's about widening that that pans of ideas. It's about getting more ideas. It's about having that innovation while observing the thoughts from their employees. But being an educator is about trying, because they have more knowledge than the employees, they obviously need to teach their employees how to do this thing and that thing. It's about the skills and even the mindset. And having a flexible mindset is always a good thing. In terms of VUCA world where everything is changing and you cannot expect anything from VUCA, the leaders always need to have open-minded to, first of all, they may need to change their working practices if needed, and they need to cope with that changes by adapting the mindset or another leadership approach as quickly as they can. Research question 3. So the way that SMEs and large enterprises differ in the way that they approach in their leadership strategies within the VUCA context. First of all, the differences between SMEs and large enterprises. They're different in organizational structure. Aims, objectives, financial strength, reputation, range of goods and services. And then for research question 4, and that's the reason why leadership approaches for SME, I encourage people and I suggest to use matrix organizational structure, democratic leadership, and transformational leadership. Management aspects for large size enterprise such as effective communication, contingency business plans such as the layering for multi-plan business, and leaders must act as a reassuring source for their employees. Now again, conclusion, leaders' abilities extended beyond power and make sure that these leadership styles are suited to the VUCA context. And oh yeah, it's always good to have a greater diversification in terms of leadership styles. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry for having rushed you. Antonio is connected and he has some questions.
Yeah.
Antonio?
Yes, I have some questions, but it's possible to share a slide with my questions because
yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
If you have some, do you want to share some slides? Yeah. Do you want to share your slides?
Yeah, one slide. Is some questions about the question is about the.
I don't know if we can do this. Let me see if I can give you the authority.
If not, I read. Don't do.
Yeah, I think perhaps it's easier if you can read your slides because for the moment I think we have lost all our rights on our.
Yes, it's better. So the question that I made is about the methodology. I'm not expert in the practical areas of the both papers. I read the papers and I think that some improvements could be made in the methodology because the authors don't mention what is the methodology adopted in the review based on the literature. There are several methods and techniques, for example, frequency analysis, meta-analysis, grounded theory, narrative analysis, meta-ethnography. I don't know what is the correct methodology that the doctors have made it, but if they want to publish it, some of the papers is important to mention in the paper. In the paper also they not said about the source, the journal, the quality of the source, if they are based in the literature, in the top journal or all journals that they will find in the Google or another search that they made. And they are not also said in the paper the number of books, journals, reports that they use in the analysis. And I think this information is important. The methodology, the quality of the basis, the number of journals that they use are important topics when you. In my opinion, when you want to do a correct review based on analysis, and this information important for the people that read the paper. Is my question is only about that.
Thank you, Antonio. These are probably more suggestions, so perhaps don't even know if they need answers.
Well, I don't know what the methodology is like. The same with research method. I'm not really sure.
So just the methodology. So your research for the moment is what we call a meta-analysis. So you are reviewing different theory of leadership, and you are trying to see if these leadership theories are consistent with VUCA, but we don't know how you read. You don't. For instance, the table 1.1 that you are showing, you are saying that this styles of management is consistent with this, but we don't know how you do this. There is no references, and also we don't know. We don't even know the name of these 5 traits, who has done it, and we don't see the different leadership approaches. So it means that I think what Antonio is saying, that from a literature perspective, your research for the moment is a theoretical research. It's a meta-analysis of existing literature on leadership, and you want to know if what we know about leadership, if the main approaches of leaderships are consistent with VUCA approach. But what for the moment is missing in this paper is an exhaustive literature review of all the different leadership approaches, and then as Antonio is saying, how can you say that this, for instance, these 5 styles are consistent with volatility, and so we don't know.
Yeah, because basically, there's this literature review where we actually put, first of all, different key characteristics of these leadership styles. So
but that's not a literature review. What you've done is you've selected 1 or 2, but you have not done an exhaustive literature review saying, okay, these are all the different characteristics of leadership that we know. So it's not a literature review, it's a selection for the moment of 1 or 2 leadership approaches. And then there is no methodology. It's not a criticism. I think Antonio is saying is that if you want to improve it in order to publish it, you need to tell the reader how you can conclude, for instance, on the 5 stars that they are consistent with, how can you conclude that the autocratic style is consistent with volatility? We don't know. So, as Antonio was saying, perhaps you can do content analysis, you code the things, you count, you check. For the moment, it's more your idea, and in your presentation, you often say, I believe, I think, I did. There is no methodology.
And I would like to ask a question. Actually, it's a full paper we present on the sources, and for the sources for literature review, actually you also focus on the article from the scientific press, and we have to search in the Google Scholar. It means follow the scientific research, not just our self opinion. But because this based on the literature review base, so we based on just some information here, then we analyze, focus on what we understand, and that's the reason why we check that.
I think Antonio and myself, we've understood the idea, so it's just a suggestion. It means that for the moment, what you are doing is a literature review. Your paper has no empirical data. What you are wanting to show is that you want to show how the different theories, leadership theories, are consistent or not consistent with VUCA. So you need to be able to say, okay, first you need to have a review of all existing leadership theories, and you need afterwards to provide what you've started to do, provide a way for you to say, okay, this leadership approach is consistent with VUCA, this one is not consistent, and so on. For the moment, what we have is 1 leadership theory, the five, which is the styles, the 5 styles, and we see what you want to do. What you want to do with this one is to assess its consistencies with VUCA, but we don't know how. So that's, I think. Sorry, Antonio, I was adding to your point.
Yes. You explained better. Yes. It's correct. Your analysis is what I mentioned. Is what you said. I think it's important to mention this is in the paper, in my opinion.
Actually, that's we would like to. Athens should have a more research, in the situation, so the research is more have a more validity and reliability. But here, let's say for first start, we should focus on the literature-based review, and then also work our thinkings. And we would like to share here in order to we can take more idea and then for further research.
But theoretical paper. There is no, you are not aiming at generating data and so on. So it's a theoretical paper based on a meta-analysis of literature, and therefore you need to have an exhaustive review of everything that is being done about leadership, and you need to have a methodology to handle, to treat the literature. So it's often called content analysis. You need to go through content analysis for us to be able to understand how you classify all the different theories on VUCA.
Yes, thank you, Antonio, by the way. But again, because first of all, this is probably my third paper, and I'm not like a university student. I just graduated high school, so I didn't have the chance to take interviews and data and stuff. But really appreciate that, honestly, really appreciate that.
Do we have comments or suggestions?
For your questions.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
For the question related to the sources, he has the data. Actually, in the full paper, we present all. Yeah, but because in the selection, no more than 20 words, so very corporate. Yes, we don't put the scholars or the researcher to give the evidence. That's in your question. Is that right? Yeah. Thank you so much for your contribution to our paper. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Do we have perhaps other questions or suggestions for this paper? Myself, I would like to add something. Thank you very much, because it's not often that we have in this kind of conference a paper written by someone who just graduated. And but it also means that this kind, the academic career is already attracting young people, if I may say so, and thank you very much. Obviously, as you will see, I think probably there are some formal issues in your paper that we need to address, but it's normal. And perhaps one point, perhaps the difference between the high school and university is try not to, your personal opinion, if I may say so, is not very interesting. So try to avoid, the personalization and move towards a more formal approach. But thank you very much for this effort, and please go on and keep on doing this kind of thing, and welcome in the academic world. Thank you very much for everyone. Sorry for all these difficulties that we had. Sorry for the delay. And thank you for our attendance online. Thank you, Antonio, especially for waiting. And thank you so much. See you tomorrow, I hope, for the second day of the conference. Thank you very much.
Have a nice day.